welcome to Networking for Beginners. My name is Krista Schmidt. As you heard already, I'm one of the co-founders for the network, and I'm looking forward, to hear from these incredible speakers. So just to remind you guys, we're going to recommend you use speaker view to get the most out of this presentation. Your microphones are going to stay off unless you ask a question, and then you're prompted to unmute yourself. We also have some time for Q&A after the presentation, but please feel free to drop in your questions in the chat box, and I'll be checking to see which ones we're going to be able to ask. If you have any issues, please message the host during the chat for any assistance. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to our two speakers, Brian Goldmeyer and Saif. So Brian is the founder and president of BYG Strategies, Inc., recognized as one of Florida's most prominent and successful government advisory, campaign, and issue fundraising. He's also a business consultant for different firms. Over the past decade, he has helped lead fundraising and capital raises for the most important issues, elections, and referendums, including county mayor and commission seats, various city and multiple seats in countywide referendum, campaign for statewide legislative and gubernatorial offices, as well as serving as a principal advisor and strategist to many of South Florida's most important government educational leaders. His firm also provides the best in-class campaign compliance consulting, fundraising to elected officials, groups, and associations and university settings. Recognized for his strategic vision, thought leadership, and result-driven orientation, Mr. Goldmeyer is constantly sought out for his opinion, leadership, and high impact in business, government, and civic life. And he was also my former boss, so I could definitely, be a witness to all those incredible things. So Saif serves as the vice president for FIU engagement. He guides the university's participation with K-12 partners, economic development agencies, industry partners, and social enterprises. Previously, he served as the founding executive director at City Year Miami. He earned his bachelor's degree in foreign service for Georgetown University and his Juris Doctorate from the University of Miami School of Law. His personal and professional life has been defined by a commitment to developing young people, building civic institutions, international dialogue, and entrepreneurship. He is a graduate of America's Leaders of Change, a program of the National Urban Fellows, and has served as a member of the Public Health Trust, the Oversight Board for Jackson Memorial Hospital. In the international realm, Saif participated in the U.S. Department Exchange to Turkey for young American/young Turkish leaders as part of the Public Diplomacy Initiative. Among his many accomplishments, Saif was selected to be a member of the Marshall Memorial Fellowship. As you guys can tell, our speakers are highly knowledgeable of these subjects and have been able to have great experiences. So I'm really excited to learn from you all. So Brian and Saif, take it away.
Good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing? We want to make sure that this is an interactive conversation more than anything, right, Brian?
Absolutely, Saif.
So in order to start off, and for the purposes of keeping it interactive, because we're in this Zoom world, but it doesn't mean that we can't stay interactive. If you are alive and in the chat, just say what's up, say good morning, let myself and Brian know how you're doing. If you're ready for your second cup of coffee, go ahead and drop that in the chat. Or maybe it's time for your 8th croqueta. It doesn't matter because Brian and I are both deeply passionate about the power of networking. And we're going to be talking about that today. As Krista mentioned, my name is Saif, and I proudly serve at our FIU as the Vice President of Community Engagement. But long before all of that, my passion has really been about building community here in South Florida. Like many of you, I'm a Miami kid, grew up here in South Florida. And over the course of my journey, which is probably a subject for a different discussion, I've had an opportunity to go through many different phases of my career, including having been an entrepreneur. I'm a lawyer by training, worked in the nonprofit sector, and now working in the higher ed domain as well. So that's going to be a theme that Brian and I talk about, which is a little bit how networking can help you as a pathway and really building a ladder in your career. I'm really excited. Brian and I have a very cool presentation that we're going to be sharing in just a minute. But before we get to that, Brian's going to share a little bit about you before we get into the nuts and bolts of how we look at networking. Brian?
Absolutely. Thank you, Saif. And my day job is, being a political fundraiser, but that's not how I feel of who I am in the community. I always like to tell people my job isn't to ask for money. My job is to identify opportunity and show value of why other people should get involved in things, not not just whether it's political, but also whether it's civic or other community leading, building opportunities. There's been great leadership programs like one that we're here on today that are offered around the state and within our community that, we should all look at and take the opportunity. But again, everything is really about, comes back down to dealing with people that you like and people that you want to deal with. Nobody has to deal with anybody in any given business. You want to leave everyone with a good feeling of every experience in dealing with each other. So, that'll kind of be the theme of what Saif and I will talk about. But again, my day job is to represent elected officials or people thinking about running for office to help see them through that path, but in an appropriate and proper way, not to, cheapen the experience of just transacting a conversation and having to be about fundraising, but to achieve true relationship building opportunity through that path of fundraising, which is really at the end of the day, what political fundraising should be about, is the opportunity to grow within each other and build off of each other and build relationships with each other. So, Saif has been kind enough to lead the way with the presentation that we're going to present right now. So I'm going to let Saif take it away for the next step.
Great. Okay, so our session is called Networking for Beginners, and there's no way to have any presentation without one of the most popular and somewhat ridiculous memes of 2019 and 2020. And so Brian and I, we thought, what better way than lady screaming at cat to capture this spirit of how do we actually build our network, right? And Brian and I were talking about this before we went live on the Zoom chat, and we oftentimes hear from people, I just want to build my network, right? Let's not jump to the next slide yet. Let's stay on the cat lady, the lady yelling at cat. Brian and I were talking about, we're just breezing through the presentation. There it is. We're done. He and I were talking before we went live about this idea that everyone wants to build a network, but before they get there, they don't realize that you have to establish who you are, establish a sense of actual authenticity. And that's really the notion of you have to know yourself before you're trying to present yourself to others out there in the world at large. Brian, what do you think about this idea of authenticity as the starting point of meaningful and substantive networking?
Look, Saif, it's a great question because, we live in a different world. Here we are where we love to be all together in one room on a Saturday morning and organically build, introducing each other to ourselves and getting to know each other. But we have to do this through Zoom. So I think, for me, this has always worked for me. As my girlfriend would say, I'm an oversharer, but that's been my authenticity. It's always been me not having my guard up immediately when I see, meet people. I like to tell people about, who I am, what I'm doing. It's amazing just by opening up the commonality that you'll sometimes, stumble upon, whether it's building a lifelong friend or meeting someone, from a business standpoint that you didn't even know that this person knew this person, but you told them what you were working on. And their response was, oh, wow, well, I actually know someone who's doing that. I should put you guys together. And that only happens because of being authentic and just being open with each other. So I think one of my main feelings, again, is just, be free and open to talk about, who you are and what you're doing. You never know, what good will come out of it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, because what winds up happening is we go into these spaces, whether they're digital spaces or before the pandemic when we're physically connecting with people, and we feel sometimes as a younger professional that you have to put on a mask, you have to engage in some sort of theatrical presentation. And the reality is, if you were to meet the business leader that you were most inspired by, you probably are going to wind up striking a greater sense of connection with them on something very, very human. So if you were to meet Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, or if you were to meet a major political figure, and Brian has worked with some of the biggest figures in America, quite frankly, if you're chatting with them, they might want to hear something more human from you about, like, what's a great book that you've read. They might even want to hear you share a bit about what garbage TV show do you watch. You might be surprised that a major Fortune 500 CEO shares your passion for Big Ed and 90 Day Fiancé. And that's what we mean when we say be authentic. I'm going to go ahead and jump to the next slide.
And I say,
sure, jump in.
One thing about that, and Chris, you can stay on this slide just as I close on that. You know, I do a little something that's a little different is be proud about some of the people you represent. I'm big on props, meaning I'm wearing a Zoe's Winter Groove shirt today, which is Alonzo Mourning's foundation, which is one of my clients I represent. You never know when you're going to the grocery store and you're wearing this, if someone randomly has had an experience, they've been there and they stop you at the grocery store. I wear this everywhere. Instead of wearing a normal mask, I wear my United Way mask because I sit on the board of United Way, and you never know what conversations, you know, little things like this will spark up. So wear your FIU polo shirts loud and proud throughout the community. Again, especially when you travel, even more connected. I do this stuff even more when I travel, because you never know abroad who you're going to run into that will have that commonality with you. So that's a little trick that I like to do.
It's a great point. I wanted to underscore on this idea of authenticity. You have to love Offset and Cardi B and the affinity that we all have for this idea of clout, which is really the idea of reputation. But the reality is it comes down to authenticity, right? And so some of the things that Brian and I have already touched upon, being comfortable in public spaces, thinking about how you might be a brand representative for things that you're passionate about. That's a really great way. And not just promotional, but Brian is talking about sharing things that are nonprofits that he's involved with. Those are not business-related items. Those are things that he cares deeply about. The next element of this, and breaking out of the framework of sometimes presenting a mask to the world out there, is that, are you really focused on building meaningful relationships? Sometimes we go to these events, or we're in an online space, and we're more interested in collecting business cards or trying to gather up as many people that we can connect with in a short amount of time. And the reality is, you could go to an event with 500 people, but if you wind up forging a deeper relationship with just one person there, that one connection could be the opener to so many opportunities. And Brian, what has that been like for you over the course of your career and your journey?
Yeah, Saif, this is really interesting. So I will give you my biggest golden secret right here to start out is take the words "nice to meet you" just out of your vocabulary, because it is going to come back at some point to bite you, where you will say "nice to meet you" to someone that I don't know, they might have changed their hairstyle, they might have lost weight, or you might not have seen them in 5 years, but they might remember you. I make sure no matter what, because I'm around so many people, I always say "nice to see you" to everybody. Doesn't mean any more or any less than "nice to meet you," but it's just a good habit to change. Now, as it pertains to meaningful relationships at events, this is kind of cheesy to say, but you know, as a little younger in my career, I would be a little bit more prepared going into an event. So if there was a charity I'd be at, I would befriend the person with the seating list and kind of understand, you know, what people bought what tables, so I can figure out that I want to, you know, cruise on by to table 23 and say hello to the FIU people, or you know, I put my kind of a made up goal in my mind that, you know what, instead of taking 10 business cards, collecting 10 business cards at this event, I'd like to have 2 meaningful conversations where, you know, meet some, you know, it's all about, again, something that catches. It's not a weird opener like, "Hey, so what are you doing here tonight?" or whatever. That's not like a networking pickup line. I'll put it that way. That again comes off, you know, back to Saif's point as authentic. So, you know, it can be tough. You know, in a loud, crowded event to have a meaningful conversation, but you find your moments, you find your favorite things to talk about, and find that, again, bridge that commonality, and don't try and do too much. Go to more events. You know, I try to, man, and I've been to 3 events in one night before. And it's just about being mindful with your time and going to the right things and not going to everything. Remember, you don't have to go to everything, especially right now with Zoom. There's plenty of opportunities to meet people. You know, I think, and Saif will talk about this in the next slide a little bit, on how to meet people in a chat, and maybe, you know, send someone a message on LinkedIn or something, someone that sounds interesting. But I think it's like online dating. It's not weird when you're on it and someone else is on it. Everyone's doing it. This is the way we network right now. So you have to feel comfortable, and the other person's going to feel comfortable with a changed way that we network in this day that we're living in today.
I couldn't agree more. And one of the last points, and we're going to talk about the mechanics of this piece, is how are you actually following up with people? This matters so much, because we focus so heavily when we're earlier on in our career journey in that great first impression. But the reality is, it's the follow-up. So let's say there's a consequential business leader or someone that it's your dream boss out in the community. Are you actually following up with them? Do you send them a message? Are you taking the time, even writing them a handwritten note? Those things go a very, very far way. I'm going to go ahead and challenge everybody right now. So I'm very, very active on LinkedIn, as is Brian. I'm going to challenge everybody. And if you're not paying attention and you're multitasking, as is the case, because it's Saturday morning and we got to feed the cat and we got to do all kinds of other things going on right now, go ahead and send me right now a message. Add me on LinkedIn, add Brian on LinkedIn, and send us a message. And let's see if you're actually going to follow up. The other thing I would say, and you're going to get at the end of the presentation, my cell phone as well as Brian's cell phone. Are you going to send us a message just to say, hey, it was whether you liked or you didn't like the presentation. If you liked it, that's great. Brian and I don't seek out that type of validation. But if there is something that you think that we can improve upon, drop us a note about that too. Feedback is a present. So I would say how you're actually following up with people matters, and technology plays a big part of that. We're going to jump to the next slide, because Brian and I both have very specific thoughts about that. Brian, you want to start off with, how do you manage your 1,000,001 connections? What's the secret CRM that you use to keep BYG strategies moving and grooving?
Well, let me, and I'm going to get to that. Let me just close on follow-up with a true story. What started my career and where I am today, what was decided on between me and someone else when I was in my 20s and getting my first job in politics, was I followed up with an email immediately after the job interview, and the other person didn't. Pretty good trait to have for a fundraiser is good follow-up. And when I interview people, I look for that. I won't tell them about, that part. I want to test them and see how quickly, when I interview someone for an intern, when I interview someone, for an assistant, Chris has gone through that, of how quickly they follow up after the interview. It really matters, because it shows many things. It shows you're interested. It shows you're smart, you're organized. It just says so many things to who you are as a character. And all the good traits that people want to deal with in building a relationship with another like-minded person. So that is my close on follow-up, and it's a great point, Saif, on bringing up good follow-up. How do I use technology? Well, we thank God, honestly, that if something like terrible like this pandemic had to happen, it's in this day where we have heightened options at our fingertips. We have Zoom. Look at what Zoom has done, and look, frankly, maybe I don't have to drive 45 minutes each way to a 30-minute meeting in Broward, because I don't mind that. For me, Zoom is a tool for the other person as long as they're comfortable, but I feel just as comfortable communicating and conversing, through Zoom. Managing, you know, my network, I got advice really early from someone, which was keep good records. Don't, whenever you collect information from someone, don't put it into your phone halfway. Don't save to the auto default phone number. That's the home. Switch it to the mobile. Ask for your cell. Ask for the title. My contacts are like a black hole. I use Google Contact. Okay. It's free. It syncs up with my phones very succinctly. I don't have to pay. I don't have iCloud contacts clicked on because I don't want to create a duplication, a dupe, you know, within there. I don't need CRMs because you know what? Google has, you know, amazing features. It has something called a label. So I started this system 10 years ago, thank God, because now I've grown to almost, I think I have 6,000 contacts, and I don't even put everyone I meet in my phone. If I meet, if I'm meeting, Mark Rosenberg, and he brings a couple people into the meeting and they give me cards, I might save Mark Rosenberg, but I'll put all those people digitally within his notes, so I can type in and search, and that person isn't digitally lost, but I'm not now creating, like, I don't have 10,000 contacts, right, to shift through. Also, these labels are awesome. I separate people, whether they're a young professional, they're an engineer, they're a Democratic donor, they live in Broward, they live in Coral Gables, they live, whatever subgroup fits to your job, do it now before you have a big network. Putting in the work on the front end has saved me so much work on the back end. I don't need a CRM. I have it right there. And it's always updated. I don't have to go through different things. It's right here on my cell phone in my contacts. I make sure if someone forwards me their contact card that I go in then, and on my computer, it says no label. I add the labels, I add the notes. If I know where your season tickets are for the Heat, I'll put them in there. If I know what your spouse's names are, spouse names and children's names are, hopefully you don't have more than one spouse. I enter them in there. You know, a lot of people like to talk about less is more, but with networking and information, more is more. And it's just better to capture all this stuff. The last thing I'll say, and I'll let this segue to Cypher LinkedIn. I have boxes and boxes and boxes of business cards, and we never look at them. So what I started to do, and actually one of Krista's first projects when she came on board was when I decided to change up this model, is I decided to scan each business card into an Excel spreadsheet to kind of have my own like database kind of on the side, and then to friend every single business card on LinkedIn. And then and by the way, I didn't necessarily put everyone into my contacts, but now I have some sort of digital place where I don't know what the future holds for me. Hopefully I'm not a political fundraiser for the rest of my life. And who knows when you need to tap into what side of the technology you stored someone, but you know what? You did the hard work up front and it'll pay off on the back end. Saif?
Thanks for sharing. No, I really appreciate that. And it's powerful as you broke it down, because Google Contacts is a free tool that any of us can use. I want to switch gears for a second. And before we do that, I want to make sure everybody's awake and paying attention. We're doing a quick poll right now. Are you a Megan Thee Stallion fan or a Cardi B fan? Please put it in the chat right now. Right now. Are you a Megan Thee Stallion fan, or is it there's no choice? If you want to put both because they're both queens, put that down. Anyway, I had to just make sure that.
Saif, I answered. I don't see your answer in the chat yet.
Okay. Well, because I'm asking. I mean, my answer is both. You know, why should it be either or? Okay. All right. Everyone's paying attention. Somebody put Nikki. That's okay too. I want to go ahead and share for our folks that are on the chat today, LinkedIn. If you are not leveling up in how you're using LinkedIn, you're leaving opportunities on the table. First of all, LinkedIn is not just a digital resume. That's what it used to be like 8 or 9 years ago. It was just a place you put your digital resume up there, and you hoped and prayed maybe somebody looked at it. If you were going through a background check with a job interview, it was a very static platform. The reality is, and all of us need to like have that long, hard look in the mirror and ask ourselves, if LinkedIn is the largest global business professional network, for those of you that are alumni, and for those of you who might even be enrolled at FIU, if you're still enrolled at FIU, you have access to a LinkedIn account. You have to ask yourself, Are you leveling up? Does your LinkedIn look like the best version of you? Are you using a professional headshot, or are you using a picture that your friend took of you 5 months ago, late night at El Patio? The answer is you want the professional headshot. You want something that represents the best version of you. You want the picture of you that your abuela has up on her kitchen wall that shows how proud she is of you. But more importantly, you want to be able to use it to develop and build and curate your online personal leadership brand. We're in a pandemic. It's very challenging for us to get out there. We can utilize LinkedIn in that way to establish our personal brand, nothing fake, absolutely real, and also use it to establish and demonstrate your thought leadership. What are the things that you're passionate about? What are the things that articles, industry sectors that you're trying to learn more about? And finally, I want to share a quick story. You can find a job very quickly through LinkedIn, and I don't mean through the career search. The current person that works with me as my operations manager on my team at FIU, a long time ago when she was graduating from college, she was from Miami, she was returning to South Florida, she was trying to build her digital network in Miami. She reached out. At that time, I actually had an opening for a special projects assistant on my team. Coming out of that conversation, she got hired, and 8 years later, as a result of it, I actually sometimes screenshot in presentations like this, the first message that I got from her, which was via LinkedIn. The final thing that I would say is that you can absolutely develop mentoring relationships, as well as yourself become a mentor through a platform like LinkedIn. A lot of times younger professionals, they wind up asking themselves, how can I get more mentors? And obviously that's very important. You're now connected to Brian and I. Message us. We are available. We are resources. We take absolute joy. Krista and I got to know each other during her time at FIU. We built a really solid working relationships as colleagues. And as she was getting to the point of graduating, on the other end of the fence, Brian was looking for somebody great to join his team. So because I take great joy in being an opportunity broker, those two were able to connect and figure it out. And Krista had a very successful run working as part of Brian's team in his company. So I couldn't in any way undervalue the power of platforms like LinkedIn, and not just writing stuff. LinkedIn now has video functionality. So if there's a cool video that you want to make, it's not necessarily as enthralling as TikTok, but it could be. You might find yourself on the other end of it building a reputation that winds up unlocking both career as well as deal opportunities for you. Brian, and any thoughts on that? Because you're very big in utilizing LinkedIn as well.
Yeah, LinkedIn. And Saif, is it okay if I talked about other social media platforms for a
Go
second?
for it.
So this is all public. As Saif said, this is your personification of who you are. I'm very big not to write my opinion on of things really on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Instagram. I have this personification on the social side that I'm very involved in the community. I'm always around a lot of people and doing cool and interesting things and that stuff, but I'm not posting anything, inappropriate. It doesn't make me seem like I'm not a hard worker. Like the comments I get from elected officials and like major, business community leaders are, damn, Goldmeyer, I'm following you on social media. You're everywhere, man. And that's what I want to be. That's exactly what I'm trying to get across in my social media, is that I'm at everything and I'm everywhere. And I take very, very careful about how I do that, purposely. And the one thing I don't do is I don't engage on political bad. I work in politics. I will not post anything political, really, with an opinion of an article or anything, because the only people are going to answer the people looking for trouble or trying to create. And then it goes into this whole like Twitter battle or Facebook battle on Facebook walls. And we've seen elected officials engage on this and other people. And it's just, nothing good comes out of being overly opinionated. I don't know if that's a good advice to give, Saif. Please tell me, because everyone should have their voice and should feel freely to speak. But for me and what I do, I just feel have those conversations with your friends. Go and tell everyone verbally anything you want, but from the world that I operate on, anything I put in writing, in text, in whatever, is going to be screenshotted and put on the front page of the Miami Herald, no matter what. And half the things we do and say are out of context. So, you know, I try and minimize that self-created drama. There's always drama, but do what you can to minimize the self-created drama.
Great point, Brian. We're going to jump to the next slide. I think we all have to be mindful of our digital footprint. So this last one is really all about the idea that networking is about a growth mindset. And and we're at the Growth Conference. So what better place? And we heard Dr. Rosenberg start off this morning talking about Carol Dweck's extraordinary book, which is all about the power of growth mindset. So I work in higher ed. I'm also a professor in our School of International and Public Affairs. I teach in a master's program there. So I'm gonna get our nerd on for just a quick second to share an idea about what does it mean about a growth mindset. During the time that we're in and why it's so important, we have to ask ourselves, right? So the days are long, the nights are longer, we're all stuck indoors. You have to ask yourself, are you using this time to binge watch, or are you using this time to what I call binge learn, right? So what does that mean? What is binge learning? And why is it important for networking? Well, the run time of the entire series of The Tiger King is 7 hours, right? That's just a fact. And if you have any doubt that Carol Baskin killed her husband, then, you know, that's a sidebar conversation. But the 7 hours for the runtime of the Tiger King, the average time of a course on LinkedIn or Coursera or any of these free platforms that's out there, it's 2 hours. So you have to ask yourself, during this time of the pandemic and we're all indoors and we're trying to grow, and networking really is about a growth mindset, because if you're in a public setting, and Brian, I'm sure, will affirm me on this because he spends time with some very powerful people. If you have nothing to say for yourself and you're just standing there like a wallflower, that means that leader is going to perceive you as someone, okay, maybe you might be shy and an introvert, and that's okay. Not everybody has natural tendencies towards extroversion, and that's okay. Big ups to all the introverts that are here. The fact that you're here today, that much love and appreciation that you're here and you showed up, showing up, as G.I. Joe said, is half the battle. But the reality is your growth mindset plays a big part of it, because if somebody actually engages you in a conversation, are you taking the time to be able to acquire new skills, new knowledge in your field? And if the answer is no, then Brian and I will tell you, then you're not going to really be able to exponentially grow your network. So Brian, what are your thoughts on this? Because we were chatting about this before we went live.
Well, you know, thanks, Saif. It's really important. And my girlfriend gave a little wave over there on the introverted personality thing, as I'm Mr. Extroverted personality. You know, finding commonality is just so important. And I touched on this before, but, you know, and as Saif mentioned from an educational standpoint, the growth mentality, you know, I want to talk about those leadership programs. You know, take an opportunity. Look at, you know, you're in one right now. You're right there, guys. I mean, you're already taking that first step. But there are many other, you know, programs through, you know, I started when I grew up in Miami. I unfortunately or fortunately did not, you know, I went to boarding school. I went to college in Boston. And when I came back here to start my career, I didn't have this great FIU network. I didn't have this great, you know, Ransom, Gables High, Berlin, Columbus, you know, wherever you go here. I had to start from fresh. And you know what I did? I did Leadership Miami really quickly. I joined United Way Young Leaders really quickly. I had Krista join Link, which is the under 30 group for United Way, really quickly. And there are all these opportunities around you. If you want to just step through that door, they're there. You just have to look, or ask me, or ask Saif, or ask Krista, you know, where these opportunities might lie. They're absolutely there. From a standpoint of, you know, you got to be willing to try new things. You know, you have, you know, early, actually, when I first met Saif, earlier in my career, he invited me over to his family's house for a Ramadan dinner. I'm Jewish. I had not experienced or participated in that before. It was just such an amazing experience and a great, we had a great time that night. I think that really set the tone for, Saif and I's relationships, which look at us 12 years, however long down the road that we've known each other now. I'm a big Democrat. Saif is a big Republican, and we love each other. And so look, it's all about commonalities. It doesn't have to be, and I joke and kid on the party affiliation because it's more of we joke about it. There's not, two strong sides. A lot of people in our generation are more in the middle, and especially in Miami, there's so many, variations of people from so many different walks of life. And that's what's great. What makes us all Miamians, and being part of Miami, being part of FIU makes you Miamian. One of the things I said to someone last night, I said, I think that the number one question that should come out of this pandemic is, so what productive thing did you do during the pandemic? One of my friends was like, I got braces. I worked out. I tried to get my tennis game back going, and other things. So, I think this provided a lot of opportunity to do those things. I think in a normal life, we're so busy and we put off. I organized my iPhone photos into albums, which I wanted to do for 5 years, and they kept on building up. So I think, taking the opportunity that you might have a little more time working from home or whatever, I think is a really important thing to do.
Excellent. Thank you for that framing. We're going to go ahead. We want to make sure we've got some time for questions, but as we said, Brian and I, the next slide, which we're going to put up, has our contact information. As you can see there, it's got not only our emails, which be sure to connect with us there, but Brian and I have both shared our cell phone numbers. Stored in your phone. We are both open resources to everybody that's here. Drop us an email. Let us know what's going on in your career journey. Let us know if there are other people that you see that Brian and I might be connected to that are in our network and you want a warm introduction. We're both resources. We're gonna put that that contact sheet up. But now we're gonna jump to questions. Go ahead. You can fire away in the chat.
By the way, Saif, I got a quick question for you. Your middle name begins with a Y?
That's right. We both have Y. There you go.
BYG strategy stands for. Y is my middle name also.
There you go. There you go.
We have so much in common. I love this.
We love
So
it.
now we'll move on to a little speed round of question and answers. So I'll start off with a question. Even though I was SGA president, sorority, super involved, once I graduated, I still got really nervous talking to people. Brian can attest to that. So really quick answer, what's the best way to overcome your nerves right before you're about to meet someone?
I'll go on this one. I'm a big proponent on humanizing the relationship. I understand that there's certain people you want to say Mr. and Sir and ma'am, but if you approach a relationship where you're beneath that relationship, I feel in my business they're going to treat you that way. So whenever I pick up the phone and call someone, especially on their cell phone, I hate it when someone calls someone's cell phone and asks, is so-and-so there, when it's their cell phone. You just have to pick up the phone and be like, hey, Saif, how's it going? And you don't even know Saif, but now he is on the other side feeling like, oh crap, does this person know me? And it starts off the conversation in a better way. And believe it or not, when I first started fundraising, I was very shy. I wasn't comfortable asking people for money. I would kind of look at the list and dread making the call. And I really needed to utilize the event to be like, hey, well, the ticket price is $250. And that's how I started my career. And I became more and more comfortable by repetition and just by telling myself, it's okay. They're the same as me on the other end. And for the most part, they're going to know you're just doing a job. And again, it's about providing an opportunity to someone. So think about that in however you deal with someone and how you're talking to someone. If you're calling them and having that mindset, just tell yourself, it's going to be okay.
Saif, do you want to answer? Do you want to go
No,
on?
keep going with questions because that
All
was a
right.
great answer.
So the next question is, how long is too long or too short for that follow-up response that you guys were talking about? Without
Less
seeming
than
excited.
less than 24 hours. You do not want to. People wind up meeting. Brian and I'm sure in pre-pandemic days, if we go to a large-scale event, we're going to come out of it having met. Because Miami is a small town, and so the people that are our current friends in our network, we're going to say hello to them and check in how their families, etc. But we're going to move around. We might on one night at a large event, like a Chamber of Commerce dinner, the Sand in My Shoes dinner, you might meet 300 people that night, and some of them might be young professionals. And the folks that are going to stand out are going to be the people that the next day there's an email in my inbox to say, hey, met you, we were both getting, dessert at the dessert station, and wanted to follow up because I just moved back home to South Florida, and I'm trying to find a job opportunity in real estate. Do you know anybody in your network that can be helpful? So less than 24 hours. I would say don't wait for a warm contact to go cold. And at the same time, be respectful, be appropriate. You don't overstate, don't oversell. You don't have to put yourself in a place of vulnerability. The other thing that I would say, and this goes across all gender boundary lines, be mindful of someone that's asking for a follow-up in what I would call a creeper type setting. Oh, let's meet up for a drink. Well, I would redirect to say, could we have a morning coffee or could we have a breakfast? Breakfast is the best meal of the day to connect with people. There's no weirdness in saying, let's go grab a croqueta together and sit down. So also we, for young professionals across boundary lines, and everybody here is beautiful, right? Miami, unfortunately, also has a very ugly side. And I would be very cautious for everyone here, because we're all one family, to also encourage people, be cognizant that your good intentions might be met by somebody that also doesn't, they're not in it to mentor you and to develop you and to connect you to a career opportunity. And so you also, as a professional with a sense of self-worth and self-esteem, need to help establish those boundary lines so they understand, like, hey man, I'm just trying to get your insight as a mentor for a job opportunity or a deal. This is not anything more than that. And Brian and I, from where we stand, we're very almost vigilant with people when they want to get connected with younger professionals in their network about how important that is.
Yeah, the one thing I'd add on top of that is it's a term I use in my world, is donor maintenance. Is how do you maintain that relationship? And as I've used Sand in My Shoes as an example, you might bump into the new people you want to follow up with, very professional email, but you might bump into 5 or 10 people that you already know, and following up with them is just as important. And we're very busy. We don't want to spend the time doing like long emails and stuff. So I'll do a subject line email, like just say Saif dash, I'll copy and paste the same message to the same 10 people. Great seeing you last night. Hope all is well. I'm telling you, 5-10% of those emails that I always send, someone will respond like, hey, you know what? It was great seeing you. I've been meaning to catch up with you about this or something. You never know. I always like to use this, and I had my girlfriend's sister-in-law paint me a painting for the office that says, communication is the key to success. And I hung it over Krista's desk. And now it hangs over Selena Medina's desk, who is now stepping into her footsteps. Hello, Selena. So I always say that communication is the key to success. So nothing bad ever happens by over communicating to people.
Those were honestly amazing tips. It's always good to keep on growing and learning, guys. Networking is so huge. As you could tell, I got my job after graduation from Saif, connecting me to Brian. And that's how you start building up your little Rolodex of connections and close relationships that you never know how that person could help you grow and really push you forward to the next part of your journey. So the next part of our journey now is going to be a 15-minute break. Your next session is going to be at 12 o'clock. Matt has dropped the link for your next session. We want to see you guys continue throughout the day. So keep it going. Don't, be afraid to talk in the chats, connect with each other. That's what we're here for today. So thank you, everybody. Take your little break, stretch, and we'll see you at 12 o'clock. And thank you to Brian and Saif.
Thank you.
Krista.